think we're ready for number 2.
I'm heavy here. I'm talking hot perspectives. I'm going to allow you to read this one. Sorry, I don't have my
I'm
glasses
reading them
on.
all.
Don't have my glasses on. So.
Okay. What helps you balance speed and strategy when managing expansion projects?
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, this is a good question because sometimes you see those lofty goals. We're opening 50 stores this year or 50 locations this year, and you're just like, how?
When you've only done 10 in the past.
How are we 400% Xing this? Okay.
With the same resources.
That part.
And money.
So talk to us about balancing that speed and strategy.
Yes, I know. This is another great question, Mal. I would say speed in a competitive environment like QSR is survival, right? But speed without strategy is chaos, right? So think about it this way. You know, you already have a playbook, right, in the market. And I've seen a lot of brands fail, right, when they try to do a cookie cutter approach, right, thinking that every market is the same. So in order to be speed, to ensure we're fast, what I do is, as a project manager, as a team leader, is spend a lot of time in planning, right? Do all the heavy lifting up front so that you can accelerate your execution, right? You have a plan, right? And what I always say to my team is be fast, but never rushed, right?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Be fast, but never rushed.
Yeah.
I like that.
So you do those heavy lifting up front. It allows you to move fast, right? And when you build, you know, your strategy around that, you really have the roadmap. So when, you know, obstacles do come up, you're able to clear them, right? And don't assume that, you know, one market is like the other, right? Don't assume, you know, when I'm expanding in Toronto, that, you know, New York is going to be the same because of like, or even within Toronto to even like Mississauga, there are different.
There's these sub-communities, right?
100%.
Yeah, these little nuances that need to be acknowledged.
Yes.
And built into the strategy.
100%.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what I always do is I prioritize like decisions that is going to unlock momentum, right?
Decisions that unlock momentum.
Right. And then also de-risk, you know, anything that is going to slow you down, right?
Right.
So those are like, you know, almost like what are the low-hanging fruits? What are the risks that will come up, right?
Yes.
And ensure that I am, you know, I never want to compromise, like, you know, long-term gains for short-term wins, right? So a lot of brands, and again, you know, when you talk about risks, right, you kind of prioritize what risks you're willing to absorb and which ones you're, you know, willing to avoid and mitigate, right? So we prioritize those.
Yes.
And ensure that you have a plan.
Yes. And I like that you bring up the importance of being proactive in the planning.
Yes.
Because to put a goal up there, like, yeah, you've done it. You've done a 50 store build year for a brand. So I know it's possible. But coming back down to making sure you have the resources and realistic expectations of what it's going to take to get there is so critically important, including the risks, including the resources, including the timelines, including the potential pitfalls, right? And considering things like the small town or the community nuances. And I want to spend a little bit of time on that, a little bit of the strategy and how to be proactive. Is there a tool, a system that you use that helps keep you organized and on task when it comes to the strategy part?
100%. Like I said, it always starts with a big goal, right? Yeah. And then it's breaking it down, right, to manageable goals, right? Mm-hmm. And seeing how we can ensure that we're hit those milestones, right? Because if you try to, this is where the planning is key. Yes. If someone comes to you and go, Mal, I want you to next week to expand into this new city, and you don't know what the steps are, like, and it's, what we, again, not to be too technical with project management terms, but we call it the critical path, right? What are those milestones for the critical path, right? To ensure that you succeed, right? You're able, like I said, move fast, but not rushed.
Right. So I imagine, because I know that you oftentimes report directly into the decision makers, the yes, the no's, sometimes even the CEO. Yeah. How do you bring someone back in when they've maybe put out a goal that, though is stretch and looks really great on paper, is just not achievable with the current resources, time of year, climate, whatever external reason, where you've just had to push back and been like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. And I think, to me, I've learned over the years is how to say no, right? And what I mean by how to say no is fact-based, right?
Using the data.
Right? Yes, these are all you want to launch next week or whatever it is, right? And then I'll build a timeline. That's not, again, I learn to say no, not necessarily saying no, saying that is possible only if you're willing to compromise on the following, right? Maybe not if you're building, for example, a software, right? You're not going to be able to have these modules. Are you okay with launching which is this? And then, whatever, another 6 months from now, I'll be able to give you this. Right? Or what is the trade-off? So I never say no, right? I find ways to get them along, bring them along on that journey, right?
No and.
Yeah.
Or yes and.
100%, because I find that, again, it's rightfully, because the CEOs, they're not part of the day-to-day management. They don't necessarily know what's on the critical path. They don't know the steps. And maybe even in the past, I've often been told that has been done in the past, right? But there's that feedback loop. Yes, you've done it in the past, but was it successful? How do you know it was successful, right? So I often hear that.
That is such an important question, is how are we defining success here?
Yes.
Right? Oftentimes, I know we've both held leadership roles and led departments and, had to answer to people. And so much time is spent around just checking that box.
Yes.
And not checking in afterwards to understand, did it have the impact that I intended it or we intended it to have? Did it deliver the results that we intended and expected? Or are we just okay with saying this task has been completed, we can move on to the next thing? And sometimes, and I know we're talking about builds and new market expansion and development, but even in operations, sometimes marketing comes with this great idea, and you want to work fast with it, and you want to push it out quickly, and you want it to be successful. And something happens, and it is successful, and you get the results that you want, but now you've ran out of product, and now you have disappointed customers and disappointed franchise partners because you didn't project in the right way. And then you start to come back. You should come back to the table and say, we got more than we expected. How do we make sure next time when we're making this decision around quantity of product or how we roll something out, how do we avoid the pitfalls of running out of product or not having the product at the DC in time for the rollout, or not having the training materials in store in time for the rollout? how are those small things impacting the overall results? And that's the difference between checking the box and saying, we've launched it and it was a success, and going back in and saying, sure, overall it was a success, but where could we have seen some better results? Were there things that we didn't consider?
Yeah. And for me as a project manager, the project doesn't end the minute the product or that restaurant is coming back and doing a post-mortem, right? Capturing or creating a database of lessons learned, right? I always, again,
do those exist? Databases of lessons learned? Because
yeah, it's very rare. Because like I said, people are already celebrating the success of that product launch or that restaurant opening.
Yes.
But you've got to keep in mind that you're going to continue launching products. You're going to continue opening restaurants, right? So I always, go to team. I'm like, you want to work smarter, not harder, right?
Yeah.
Like we do not want to, every time we launch a new product, we're starting from scratch, right?
Yeah.
We want to be able to have, a database of like, what were the successes so we can replicate those, and what were the obstacles so we avoid them.
Yes.
And I find that is the biggest pitfall of, of any project or, brands and corporations I've been part of. They just ignore that part. So for me, I think what has made me so successful, or some of the brands that I worked for, is going back and ensuring. It is painful because everyone just wants to forget and,
celebrate the win.
Celebrate the wins.
Yeah.
Right. But it's important to circle back and ensure those are captured. Right.
Yes.
So, and it's, like I said, everyone thinks it ends there. It doesn't. and I think what is also important, too, is that, you recognize your team members, right? And I always say celebrate the small wins as well as the big wins, right? And sure, touch base with your team, right? Like that's what the post-mortem is. How were you, like what can we do differently? Is it, to me, if I could be like, this felt a lot for one person. Do you, should we add another person? Like those are what we capture as well, to ensure that you have the same team again to help you have another successful launch. Like you don't want to have a brand new team, right? Because your team is gone. Like yes, you did it, but at what cost?
At what cost?
Yeah. Right? So
at what cost? I love that you're bringing in the importance of the post launch or post opening analysis, right? Yes, celebrating the wins, but looking at where we could learn and take some lessons from. I think that's genius. Database of, what did you call it?
Sort of a lessons learned.
Lessons learned. Yes, a database of lessons learned. Now, you said feedback loop in getting that feedback from your team. Who do you need to hear from at the end of a project? And since we're talking about expansion into new markets and development for brands, we'll stick to more so that scope of work. Who is it that you're checking in with for that feedback?
I think ultimately it is your key stakeholders, right?
Okay.
So for me is the CEO, my manager, right? To ask them, was this a win in their eyes, right?
Yes.
If it is or isn't, why or why not, right? And again, I would caption the lessons learned, and I would also, as a leader, I would also push back and say, what did success look like, right? What were your KPIs that you're measuring, right?
Yes.
Ideally, you would try to capture this, at the beginning of the project, so right? Again, fact-based, that it was a success, right? But I've worked for, CEO where, maybe the old mentality that, we're not going to give this team all the recognition. Yes, that was a win, but you could have done faster. You could have been, cheaper, And for me as a team, as a leader, I would push back, but I would still celebrate with my team.
Yes,
right?
yes. So you said checking in with the CEO. Who else?
For me is the business key stakeholders, right? So it
let's
could
go
also,
through them. CEO.
CEO would be if it's a restaurant opening, right? And for me is your operations. I always say my operations team is my internal customer, right? You want to make it as easy and as seamless for, whoever's coming in to open the restaurant, because that is a very challenging role, right? You're dealing with
You're talking about that either field coach or franchise business coach or store operations trainer.
So, like that. You can imagine you're having an influx of customers and you have a completely new team that don't understand. So everybody is calling your name, reaching out to you. So for me, who primarily focuses on, development and ensuring that the restaurant is operational efficient, right? Ensuring that they don't have to worry that a fryer's not working. I want them to come in there, focus on the training, focus on the opening of the restaurant. So that would be one, like, to me, that's a very important stakeholder. Was that success?
Okay, so corporate operations, making sure you get that feedback from whoever that field support or opening support team or person was, making sure you understand, hey, was everything working the way it was supposed to work? Did everything show up in the way it was supposed to show up?
Exactly. Yeah. And then to me, ultimately, it's also your franchisee, right?
Yeah.
If,
can't forget the franchise partners.
And if you don't have, the franchisee, again, you're also selling a brand as a franchisor, right?
Yes.
You want to, it is easier to grow within the existing franchisee, to make them a multi-unit, right?
Yes.
You make it easier for your team as well. Like they already understand the brand. They already operationally should be efficient, right? So you want to ensure that they also want to grow
have a
with
great
you.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not just internal, it's a franchisee, it's, your team, from a mental state, how are they feeling are they motivated for the next project to come, right?
Yes.
It's your operations, right?
Yes.
It's like checking points with all your cross-functional team members.
Yes. Yes.
That's how I look at, success.
Nice. Yeah. So leadership, aka CEO, internal teams, whether that's operations or training, whoever the boots on the ground was to get that project over the line. And then the franchise partner, making sure that they've had a positive experience. And, on the franchise partner piece, because I think that is a critical piece that is often missed, it's also important that you're getting the honest feedback. Because as a franchise partner, you want to maintain a positive relationship. You want to be seen as a strategic growth partner. Yes. And so you don't want to say anything that might paint you in a different light or ruffle feathers or offend people, which goes back to the point you made earlier about being an effective leader that creates that safe space for honest and open and transparent conversation. So thank you for bringing that up. And I think that's really important. And I think when franchisors are seeking that feedback, maybe you lean on the franchise business coach or the field coach that has a relationship with that franchise partner who might be able to extract that more honest feedback and funnel it through that way. Yeah. Because I can't imagine a franchise partner saying to maybe a CEO or a project leader, you dropped the ball here and it cost me X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
It might be just easier to give that feedback to someone that they already have that relationship with.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I would just say, for me as a leader, like I always feel that in order to be an effective leader, I got to be able to be in their shoes, right? So although, I've had, some key leadership roles, I do spend a lot of time in the field, right? Staying connected, hearing them out, right?
Yes.
And often, and actually I'm not sure who told me this once, but I thought it's so effective, is that franchisees will always ask, as a franchisor, for the world, because what's the worst thing for them? Is the franchisor says no, right? So no, coming from that set of lens, because I use big, we've delivered this restaurant on time, and but they're always gonna push and ask, because really, what is in it for them? Like nothing, but they're just gonna be said no, right? Told no.
Yes.
So I've come from that, right? And is also listening, and I'm talking about really listening, not just checking the boxes, right? Because over the years, I've learned that the franchisees, they're boots on the ground, right? So there are a lot of insightful that I'll come back and I've adapted to future builds, right?
Based on their feedback.
And I give them recognition. So they know that they're just not saying that they're being heard, right?
It's beyond just being heard. It's being included.
Yes.
And I always tell people, brand growth, brand culture is about connection.
It is.
How everyone in the ecosystem feels about the connection to your brand, right? Your leadership, your team members, the customers, the franchise partners, the communities that you serve and exist in, right? How they feel about your brand matters, right? That's how we equate brand value.
100%.
Right?
And you are in the wrong field if you are not a people person.
Yeah.
Right? Like you said, you're just, connected with everyone in the community, internally, externally.
Yes.
Right? So you have
love
to really
that.
like people.
Love that.